Hi everyone, we're here again with another MacCast, getting to know your team members. Now we're going to talk to Kean Kelly, who's an instructor in our Halzone Academy, and we're going to chat a little bit about Kean's martial arts and his lifestyle around martial arts. So here we are now. Kean, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Big way from Kean. So first of all, Kean, we know this is going out to our students across all three academies, Halzone, Dudley and Stourbridge. So for those that may not have seen you or know who you are, can you just tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, hello guys, I'm Kean Kelly, Mr. Kelly's son and the stepson to Mrs. Kelly. So I work in the Halzone Academy. I'm an instructor there. I teach all the fundamental classes and handle anything that Mr. Tolly needs me to cover for him. I've been training since I was about 3 years old, whatnot, and I've been going now. I'm 17 years of age, 18 soon.
Okay. So did you train all the way from 3 right the way to now?
No, when I was 3, I went from about 3, I think, till about, can't remember, I think about 8. I had a bit of a 2-year break then, had a bit of an off time then. Something ignited it back in me again, and then I had another little break then when I started high school, focusing on some other different sports. And then I come back when I was about, I'm going to say 14, and then really started to put my training back up again. I think I went through a little bit of a stage being doing it since I was young, where I needed a bit of a break in my head from it to let myself refresh and get a fresh start on my journey of martial arts, whatever you want to call it, which allowed me to then go again and, do better than I did before.
I think it'd be worth pointing out to the people listening to us that obviously you kind of live with martial arts virtually every day since you've been a young baby. So, it's not like, I think normally where parents are doing one thing and martial arts as a sport is something that you want to do. You were in the original academies. In your baby rocker, you went everywhere with us. If some of the guys who were in the Stourbridge Academy look, you can see pictures of, actually in all the academies, pictures of Kean being held by different martial artists, the likes of Rick Young and people like that. So he kind of was on overload from a very, very early age. But I think for me as his dad and as his instructor, when he took his junior black belt and came up to that kind of period of time, which was very, very important, he was very dedicated then, very focused, did lots and lots of training, put his time in, travelled to spar at the other academies, really good stuff like that, where it was really pleasure for me as his dad to see him do it, but also for him to prove that he could follow through on the type of things that we wanted to do. So, he kind of has that little time away. It's quite understandable because if you live in our house, we're on martial arts 24/7 generally. So you're based in Halzone, Kean. So you said you teach the fundamentals. I know you teach the adult class, you teach some of the grappling. We spoke about a little bit about when you started. I can't remember. Did you start because you wanted to, or was that just kind of how the family was at the time?
I don't think I really ever had a choice as if whether I started, but I wanted to start. So I think it was always going to be destined at some point where I did start because of who my dad is, who my granddad is, the rest of my family around me, the opportunity I have for me in that sense. I think I kind of got put into it to start in the Tiny Tigers, but then I think I always wanted to carry it on as you saw, well, not as you saw, as you mentioned, I went from, the Tiny Tigers all the way up to my first dan junior black belt, actually second dan.
Correct. That's right. And I think just for the people, again, watching, Tiny Tigers would be the equivalent 10, 12 years ago of what the Kung Fu Cubs is now. But being honest, I think our Kung Fu Cubs program now is a lot more switched on in terms of what it's delivering through the EYFS, through the foundational development programs, and through the members of the team Kelly and Sam being very, very switched into that. But Kean's Tiny Tigers was the very original start of that, way, way, way back. We spoke a little bit about your past training, Kean. Why do you train now? What about martial arts for you is important now?
Since I come back when I was about 14, started training the adults. So obviously I went from the juniors to the adults, which is quite a big leap. So it's all been about fighting for me. Not sorry, I mean in the sense of not street fighting. I mean fighting for a sport competitively. You know, I like to deal with that pressure. I like to have that something to work towards. You know, it's always been about fighting since I've come back when I was 14. I always enjoyed the sparring when I was younger, and I always liked doing it. But when I started to watch stuff like the UFC, and I started to get more involved with the likes of training with you a lot more often, it was very much for me then. I understood that it was a career path that I could take. So when I hit 18 now, you know, hopefully then I can get my first chance to get into the cage or whatnot.
Okay, so I know you're using the term fighting because that's kind of vernacular amongst us as martial artists, but I think combat athlete in this case might be a better way of kind of saying that. But I think as well, you know, we did have a period of last year where we were looking at setting you up with a boxing match, which unfortunately fell through. But you had a taste then of the different level of training that a fighter needs. That strength and conditioning, the attention to detail, the amount of technical skill plus the sparring skill, putting it all together and doing it all under pressure. And from our point of view, you seem to enjoy that particularly. Would that be true?
Yeah, 100%. That's my favourite kind of training. Through and through, 100%. I enjoyed the pressure. I feel like if there's not something getting put on me where I need to do it, then sometimes I struggle sometimes to get that motivation for myself. I feel if I don't have a goal to work towards, if I'm starting here and I'm just going to end up here to keep training and training, if I don't have that stepping stone to work towards something else, it kind of puts me in a position where I don't feel like I'm earning as much. It's never really been a crazy journey for me to get a black belt. When I was younger, it was. When I was in the juniors, all I wanted was that black belt, you know what I mean? It took years and years, and I'm sure there was times where I was, you know, asking you for tips on how to get better and whatnot, and I still do that now. But since I've turned into an adult and I've grown up a bit more in my teens, the idea of a belt for me has kind of faded into the back, whereas just the actual training to be competitive, the training to have that, you know, that future goal, that future career of being a combat athlete, as it's
So it's worth mentioning again, this is Kean's current mindset. Kean went all the way to second dan as a junior. Sorry guys, he competed as a young athlete then to get his adult black belt. So this is Kean saying this, having achieved that second dan in the juniors and having achieved first dan in the seniors, and he's scheduled to take his second dan in the seniors November of this year. So it's not to say that he's not part of the program and part of the curriculum, it's to say that Kean's motivation in some way is different for that, which I totally understand. The Jeet Kune Do philosophy is that you follow what you believe your path in martial art should be. I think for me as an instructor, I think one of the things I'm going to ask Kean about now is you teach a lot of our youngsters. You teach our youngsters, you teach our adult beginners. The feedback we get from these people, from the students, is very, very good. They feel you engage with them. How do you see? So we spoke a bit about your personal view of what martial arts is for you. How do you see yourself on the mat as an instructor for the juniors, bearing in mind that you've travelled that path right the way from 3 years old? So you, as we are currently, you would have gone through the Kung Fu Cubs program and then gone through the whole of our junior curriculum to second dan, and now you're teaching our juniors that. And how do you feel that is as a responsibility or your opportunity to share share your journey for them?
To me, it's huge. If you don't have the opportunity to help okay, I'm still young. I'm not technically an adult yet. I'm still 17. But because of the way I grew up, I had to have a lot of responsibility in the sense of the way I have to teach these kids. So for me, it's huge to get to help to bring the youth up and make them a better person themselves, give them more confidence, make sure they're protected when they're out, with their friends in the streets or at parties or whatever else they're doing at school, in the playground, whatever, to make sure the youth have that confidence, to have that self-protection, to make sure they're okay in themselves is huge for me. Because, I've been through it myself. I understand that sometimes, when you're young, you come home from school and you go, I can't be bothered to go training today. And even though you might get poked and prodded to go and do it, when you get there and you do it, it's like, oh, it's done. But for yourself in your head, it's better in you each and every single time. I also think I get to see some of myself in the kids as well. You know what I mean? Some of the kids I teach, I can see little bits of myself in there from where I've taught them, from the ideas of how I used to train and what I used to do.
And I think as well, we're talking about the side of it where you've been there and done it. And I think in a lot of cases, some of our junior students, while they'll look up to the older instructors, such as myself, they will relate more to someone like you. And that's a responsibility for you as a young instructor with a lot of experience, but to help those young people realise that, yes, it is martial arts. So if we look at, say, for example, some of our Storm members, our special team of role models, some of these young men and young ladies are fantastic martial artists. They're learning to coach and learning to the background behind what that is, but they're also learning to share and give back within the classes. Is that something you think is important?
100%. You've got, I think, for me, the Storm is very important. You know what I mean? I think before, when I was younger, we didn't have anything like that. We had the AIT and the CIT, but it was never the way Storm is. Now I see the Storm, now I'm teaching them and I'm watching them and I'm having them help me in the classes. I think it's super valuable because it gives them that level of responsibility that otherwise they might not have. It makes them have to learn faster. It gives them something extra to focus on. Plus, it also opens up that opportunity for them to become coaches and hopefully as they get older, instructors, and, learn different aspects of martial arts, not just the idea of training, they're helping the other people and whatnot.
Okay. So the questions are a bit different because for you, because you're who you are and how close you are. But who else have you? So most of your training has been in MAC, but we have been kind of looking to spread that out a little bit. Who else have you trained with as a young martial artist that's left an impression on you? I'm thinking here of Tommy, Ben Jones.
Yeah. Okay, so just to start, the biggest person who's ever going to leave an impression on me is you. In my opinion, there's no one better to learn off. So everyone who's training in MAC, learning from Mr. Kelly, is a privilege, 110%. I understand sometimes that people look at like the likes of all the other instructors and think, well, I want to train with them. But no, the best to me, and I can guarantee almost everyone else will back this up, is Mr. Kelly. But from the other perspective is, getting to train with Mr. Kelly's instructors is a whole nother ball game. I've grown up with Mr. Kelly, he's my dad. I've been through all of that with him. But then when he took me outside to go to train with the likes of Tommy Thompson, that's where I like that pressure. He brought that new aspect to me, you know what I mean? I'm very fond of using my hands while sparring, but when I went to go box, it was a whole different ball game for me. I had to change the way I saw, the way I moved, the way I punched. I can't kick anymore. I can't really grapple it that much. You have to change a whole aspect. Then jumping from that to the training with Ben Jones, it's all MMA there, the kicking, the punching, the grappling. I mean, he beat me up for a good weekend. I loved it, but he gave me a good whooping.
For the guys that are watching, you're watching and listening. Tommy Thompson is my boxing coach. Tommy's was part of the Brendan Ingalls team, trained with Prince Naz back in the day, Johnny Nelson, Junior Witter, and people like that. So Tommy's been a huge influence on me and a huge influence on the boxing that we that we teach in the academy. So I took Kean up to Tommy's club where Kean sparred with some of Tommy's boxers. Guys who are only focused on that, to give him that, to broaden his horizon, give him that feel of something different coming at him. Ben Jones is the head fight coach of CSW in America. So my instructor there, Eric Paulson, Sensei Eric Paulson, who's the founder of CSW. After over 20 years, I'm an instructor under Coach Paulson. Ben Jones is his main coach and head fight team coach. Came to the UK and again did some training with Coach Ben over a few days, and got to feel what it's like to train with a fighter, an ex-fighter now retired, a fight coach, who's got fighters currently in the, excuse me guys, he's got fighters currently in the UFC, and really just to share some of that knowledge and train with some guys from around the different parts of the country. He did some work with Dave Lee from Crossface down in Watford, and one or two others that were there. So quite an experience. And I know some of our other juniors who've been with us for a long time have really enjoyed doing some of these seminars. But again, you go back for these guys and for Kean. Kean's always been around what martial art is. Back in the day, and you've heard me say this in a couple of the other podcasts, you would not be able to get the kind of connection and interaction with these types of coaches that easily. That we wouldn't know who they were, where they are. You'd be in a closed group. So for me, as a dad, being able to give, and as an instructor, being able to give Kean that opportunity to train with them is a great sense of pride for me, but also because Kean's martial art is very, very good. It's also a real sense of pride for me to watch my son being involved in that kind of environment. How do you think your martial art training, Kia's, kind of set us up for this situation right now as we're talking? We're in the middle of lockdown. We're not in our academies, we're not in our schools. But the team generally, I know you were doing some filming with Sam today for the Kung Fu Cubs. The team generally, we're doing live classes, we're building up a repertoire. How do you think, or can you relate to your training in what's helping you deal with this situation?
The idea coming back for me, everything coming back to me for the idea of being relaxed under pressure. There's one thing, and I'm sure if some of my adult fundamentals watch this, and some of the kids that I teach sparring, is under pressure, you've got to be relaxed. If you cannot relax, everything goes wrong, in my opinion. You know what I mean? If you can't focus in that middle of the chaos, the eye of the storm you need to be in, everything becomes a lot harder. So for me, I mean, for you, you've never experienced anything like this. And now imagine a 17-year-old boy, he's gone through this entire journey of always being able to go down to the academy and train, and then now everything goes, you can't go there, you can't go and teach, you can't go and see the students, you can't go and see the rest of the team. But you've got to be relaxed. When it come down on the news, I'm sure we were stood in the middle of a fish and chip shop and it come up on the news and I told you about it. Now, the first thing that went through my head is, what does this mean for, the students, for me, for the rest of the team? Then I also thought, everything's going to come out in the wash. I've got to be relaxed, because if I freak out, or if I, something goes in my head and I start thinking stuff and overthinking and get a bit paranoid about it, then, it creates more problems than need be. Being relaxed under pressure is one of the biggest things that I've ever learned to have, and that came from the martial arts. So
I was going to say to you, if you could look back over your time as a martial artist, because I think a lot of times, again, we're talking, hopefully the guys that are listening to this, are getting some insights into how we are as martial artists beyond just seeing us on the mat. So somebody could look at you and kind of go, well, there's a young man, but you've been training now for probably 14 years. You will take the odd break or whatever for the reasons we chatted about before. If you could look now and say to a young person coming into train as a martial artist, and maybe just being a little bit apprehensive or not being quite sure, what advice would you give them?
Same thing that I just said there. Relax. 110%. Dealing with the fundamentals in house Owen, I see that a lot. I have people come in, they seem, a bit nervous and a bit like, what am I expecting here? And, I don't think, in my opinion, you should expect anything. You should never not expect anything. You should never expect anything, because if you walk into the academy and you expect to be the best, that's not going to happen. If you walk into the academy and expect to be the worst, that probably won't happen either. There's always someone better and there's always someone worse. So, you need to get in there and you need to think to yourself, right, I'm here to do one thing and I'm here to do one thing only. Let's try. Don't pay attention to the other person at the end of the mat. Don't pay attention to, the thoughts in your head thinking, am I doing this right? When you walk in, I'm there to help. I'm not there to, terrify you. I am quite a tough instructor and I make you work, but that doesn't mean I'm there to, cause you harm or hurt you. In that sense, I'm there to help you along. So relax. When you get on that mat, breathe, nose and mouth, chill out, relax. Have a good night, laugh and a joke with me, with the rest of the students on the mat, and just chill out. And then when it really gets, into it and you're training hard and you're sweating and you think to yourself, man, this is hard as hell, keep pushing. That's why you need to be relaxed, because if you're freaking out in your head, you're thinking, I'm not doing it right, or I can't keep going, then if you think that, it's exactly what's going to happen.
Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we don't chat like this. We don't chat like this very often. This kind of, we're asking specific questions about the martial arts and how we both potentially view, or how you view it, and then how that affects my perception of where you are. So, do you have any message for the students that are out there, the ones that we're not seeing at the moment, the Mac family, the one family, one team, one colour, before we sign off, Kean?
Relax. For me, it all comes back down to that point. I will repeat it over and again, because everything in life has to come out in the wash. Whether it's family issues, whether it's job, money, social, anything in life, it has to come out in the end, no matter what. And I believe in that 100%. But if you are stood in the middle of chaos and you let everything go in your head, then it's going to make stuff a lot worse. There's a thing we said a few weeks back to each other. When you're going through a hell, keep going. Yeah. You know what I mean? Don't stop. Just because you can't train, don't mean you can't do it. We're out here giving you all these live videos, the live stream, the videos, the podcasts, everything that we're putting out, use it. When you're at home and you're cooking, footwork, dance about a little bit in the kitchen, move that head, bob and weave, move them feet, dance around a little bit. When you're out on your run for your daily exercise, maybe stop a little bit, shadow box in the park or whatever, just keep going. Don't stop. If you stop and you let this get to you, then it's gonna make it a lot harder for you to drag yourself back out of that situation. Keep moving, keep pushing, stay relaxed, and don't fear the pressure. It's as simple as that for me, really.
How do you not feel the pressure, Kean? So for me, that comes down to, I'll say where I think you've got to be training, you've got to be used to training so that it's second nature, so that what you're doing becomes a subconscious effort as much as a conscious effort. You've got to learn to be comfortable in that environment, so that you can, as you're saying, that chaotic mind doesn't allow you to absorb or reflect or react to what's going on around you. So you get that by countless hours of training, countless hours of putting yourself through that, so that eventually you can relax under pressure. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, my favourite aspect of training, it probably always satisfied with sparring. I love it, It allows me to put myself in the situations that I've never been in before. It allows me to work myself in situations that I've been in that I want to get better at. And it also allows me to relax. I think one of the biggest times I'm relaxed, and I don't think there is many people like this in my opinion, is when you're getting punched in the face. But if you can teach yourself and you can train yourself to get even the slightest bit calmer and chill and breathe and move and see stuff as it comes at you, and train and keep pushing, it makes everything so much easier. You know, I'll be stood in the middle of sparring, I'll allow someone to punch me or attempt to, and I can attempt to do a certain defense, a certain attack, a certain movement of my feet. You know, it allows me to relax and see every situation. Now, I think you can't always put yourself in every situation, but then, you know, trying your hardest to help yourself learn and see that you know that you can cope with hard situations. You don't have to think to yourself, okay, this is new, this is hard, I can't deal with it. No, you can. You know, you don't have to
But
sit
it's
there
a
and
learning
think.
curve. It's a progressive learning curve. You've got to turn up and take the pressure a bit at a time. If you've got good instructors and a safe environment, then what you're suggesting, you can pressure test yourself. You just got to develop the mental strength that goes along with that.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for me. You know, you could have all the physical strength in the world. You could be the biggest, muscliest. You could be the fastest. You could be the leanest, the tallest, the smallest. You can be whatever you want physical. If you haven't got it up here, then you haven't got it all. In my opinion, you need to make sure you have it in your head. Be mentally strong. You know, you could be the skinniest person in the world, the biggest person in the world. You could be bang on in the middle. You could be perfect in shape. But if you haven't got it in your head, then for me, you will always, you know, struggle in the face of chaos or fear or pressure.
Which is why they always say the whole of martial art and even personal development is mind, body, and spirit. Getting your mind and your body working together, and then building that spirit that in martial arts would be called the indomitable spirit, the one that doesn't give in, the one that says get knocked down 7 times, get up 8. So thank you for the chat, Key. We don't often get to chat like this. Interesting to hear some of your views. I probably think I know most of them, but there's a few insights in there for me. So just remains to say thank you to you. Thank you to all the guys in Mac who will be listening. And shall we give each other a wave? See you later.
See you later. Thank you.
Bye.